Hello everybody, welcome to Crafty Soup. My name is Misty. If you hear lots of background noise today, it's because I am enjoying some much needed sunshine outside as I do this voiceover. So you may hear traffic or birds, and that's how it is today. So what I have for you today is Mixed Media Mayhem Friday plus the Iron Crafter Challenge, and those both happen on the last Friday of the month, so I combined them. And with the Mixed Media Challenge, we start with a sketch and add mixed media. And our sketch this time around is from Precious Pages Papercraft, and I will be inspired by colors, textures, and clustering. And the Iron Crafter Challenge focuses on a particular item. This month around, it is fabric, and that is great for mixed media layout. So with this long introduction, I will be creating my own stamp, doing some watercolor stamping for my mixed media, and including die-cut fabric. So let's dive in. All right, first thing you will notice is I have no photos here, and that's because I'm going to tell a story based off of product from my counterfeit kit. And if you don't know about my kit builds, I'll link you up. And here is what I've got. It says Spring Sunshine in puffy stickers. And like I said, I've been sitting outside enjoying some sunshine because it has been a dreary spring here, so I have needed that. As I sort through my counterfeit kit, I am pulling out some supplies that I think will go well with this, including that piece of purple mixed media paper, watercolory paper, and that works perfectly with a sketch. I'm going to create two clusters. I know the sketch has one main cluster, but I'm going to do two, one for my title and one for my journaling, and I will set those on a diagonal. I am going to frame those out since they need a little bit of a structure. Photos usually provide that rectangular frame structure. So I'm going to create that structure with this die set from Hero Arts, and I will link you up to all the products below. I am picking two different patterns, one for the title block and one for the journaling block. Now, I use this frame that has a wood grain texture to it, and I forgot that it actually cuts instead of embosses that texture in there. Not quite ideal for using on top of pattern paper. That's more effective with cardstock, but I'm just going to leave it because it's also not a big detractor either. It just didn't have the effect that I was hoping for. At any rate, I am going to create those blocks using that central portion from the frame die cut to hold the elements, and I'm going to pop those up off the page. Now, I did kind of do a little trial run with my stack of foam blocks so that I could see how that would look. And then once I'm happy with it, I'm going to go ahead and add the foam for realsies. And I'm going to double up the foam so that I get two layers. And then I'm going to place that frame on another sheet of pattern paper because I want to create pockets behind these frames. In case I want to add some photos later, I have those pockets there that I can tuck some things into. We'll see how that doesn't go quite as planned later on in the video, so stay tuned for that. And here's another mistake I made. I adhered my pocket down to the main layout before I got to doing my mixed media. So a little bit later on, you'll see me pull that back up. But I did have that extra sheet of paper as part of the pocket so that I could layer that foam on top of the pocket and not worry about it. And I do like to see that peek through. Okay, but let's do the mixed media part. I have a Tim Holtz butterfly set. I'm going to die cut a single solid butterfly, and I'm going to use the Tim Holtz Distress watercolor crayons. These two different purples come from two different sets, and I will link you up to those. One is Villianous Potion, and the other one is Seedless Preserves. I also pulled out my fabric collection to do some die cutting. And I have some tulle, and that goes kind of a mixed bag of that, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go. I am going to create some little butterflies out of paper and felt combined. We're going to die cut some tags out of this. But before I get to all the die cutting, I wanted to finish up my second block down there so that I had all the structure in place before I have all of my pieces ready to tuck around. So I want that structure to be there. Now here's where you see me having to pull that back up again. Luckily, my ATG tape that I use takes a little while to set up to permanent most of the time, and I can pull that back up. And in the meantime, I have die cut all of my bits and pieces, and I just wanted to touch on die cutting fabric a little bit. Here you see some of the felt die cuts that I have, and felt is a great thing to die cut and it won't ravel on you. Now the tool that I used, because of its holy nature, you want to die cut bigger shapes out of that. If you try to get too fine detail, it's going to fall apart and crumble on you. In terms of regular fabric, like these kind of creamy tags down there, that is a plain cotton, which will ravel over time. So I'm going to use some glue to help prevent that. And also, I don't want to handle it a lot. Now, if you have no regular fabric in your stash, use old clothing. T-shirt material in particular won't ravel, so that's a great thing to die cut. All right, with those couple of tips there, I have moved on to my stamp, and that is die cut out of just craft foam. And I attached it to a clear stamping block using some temporary adhesive. And I've moistened it with a squirt bottle, and I've scribbled my watercolor crayon straight on it, so it's nothing complicated. And then a couple more squirts of water, and I can use that as a stamp. Now you can rehydrate that and get 2, 3, sometimes 4 stamps out of it. Of course, each impression will be lighter and lighter, but when you're ready for a darker impression, you just redo the whole process. Re-moisten your stamp, re-scribble with watercolor pencils, crayons, whatever you've got, even markers, but don't wet your stamp first because markers don't like to draw on wet things already. But this is a fun, simple mixed media technique if you feel intimidated by what you think of mixed media being totally messy and gooey. It doesn't have to be. And using fabric, like I said earlier, is its own kind of mixed media. So if you don't want any of this inky, messy thing, stick with some fabric, and that is your own way to add mixed media. All right, I do want to add a couple of light black sprinkles onto this as well, just because I do have some black accents with the felt that I die cut. So I got my fan brush out and some more ink, and I've got that going. And then it is time to glue all of my little bits and pieces together. This layout did take a while. And you know, the other thing I should say here as I glue all these things together is that fabric, especially felt, really soaks up the glue. So you want to use a good amount. And here you'll see as I put glue on these little embellishments, sticking them onto a piece of wax paper to let them dry can be helpful as well. With those butterflies, I layered up a piece of tulle on top of a felt, and then I wrapped it all with some embroidery floss to create the little antenna and bodies, and then I added the glue in place as you saw there. Final little step here, I'm adding some embroidery floss to my tags to give them some more dimension there. And then I am ready to assemble the entirety of the page. Now, as I add some of the glue to this fabric, you'll notice that I will put some stamping blocks on top of them because it does take a little while for that stuff to dry. All right, here is where my pockets didn't go as planned. They were a little bit too tight for the size of tags that I cut. And so I had to end up cutting off my felt and just gluing those in place. The paper tags are slid in there. So if I do want to add some photos later, it's still possible. It's just pretty tight. So I don't know if that will work out. At any rate, despite that mistake, I do have my title and my journaling, which tells my whole story. So even if I don't add any photos, it is okay. I've got my story on there, and I'm just having fun playing with supplies and decorating things up. I've got some puffy butterflies along with my fabric-y butterflies. Now, I did plan on stitching around the edge to finish this up, but I was too tired at this point. This did take me a while to get all of these pieces. So I just pull out my journaling pen, and I do this often enough anyway that I feel fine using that as my finishing touch. And to remind you as we wrap up, this is a hop, so be sure to check the description and support all the other hoppers playing along. Now, before we go, I do want to talk just a bit more about that homemade foam stamp. To store these, I will take it off of the block and put it onto a piece of wax paper because sometimes it still has some adhesive on the back. And that temporary adhesive can be a little tough to get off, so I use a adhesive eraser, and then I will clean any residue off with alcohol, and that should be good to go. And you can make your own stamps and do this with any shape that you find interesting. And as we take a peek at a bit of a close-up slideshow, if you find any of the products that I'm using interesting, I will leave you links below that are affiliate shopping links. You don't have to buy these products in particular, but anytime you use my affiliate shopping links, it doesn't cost you anything extra, but I get a little kickback from the companies for sending business their way, and that actually helps me stay stocked up on all of these supplies so that I can continue bringing you interesting videos. So I appreciate if you use those links. And thank you for doing so if you're already shopping. And thank you for being here and for watching. I may have one more video for you in April until I roll around back into my schedule for May. And we'll see how that goes. And until I see you next time, have an artful day.